Don't dream it. Gareth's Glory Boys make history.
They've done it. They've only gone and done it.
It shredded nerves from the very start. The Great Danes putting the first away. Then this bundle drew England level. And a nation lost its head. It puts England through to its first major final since 1966. Southgate has laid his ghost to rest and put a jolt of joy through the whole nation. But boy, did he make us wait. Steve will relive the roller coaster with us. And meanwhile, Geraint's in Copenhagen for the ecstasy and the agony for Denmark. Also on News at 10 tonight. Summer travellers go for the double jabbed. Quarantine for amber countries expected to be lifted on July the 19th. It's personal. Trump sues the heads of Facebook, Twitter and Google after they threw him off social media.
We're demanding an end to the shadow banning, a stop to the silencing, and a stop to the blacklisting, banishing and cancelling.
And the Dutch in shock after an attempted assassination of a Star TV crime reporter.
From Wembley, this is the ITV News at 10 with Julie Etchingham.
Well, good evening and welcome to Wembley, where a whole lot of history has been made tonight in the Euros. They're still celebrating. How are those fingernails, England fans? They don't make it easy, do they? But that elusive prize of playing in a major final is now theirs again after half a century. The sweet taste of semi-final victory secured to the strains of Sweet Caroline. If you didn't see it, how could you not have done? The final score was 2-1. England's winner came in extra time from what could be described as a soft penalty. It was hard on the Danes after all they've gone through in this tournament, but England won the right to be back here on Sunday to take on Italy in a final.
History makers again. A humble bunch of players packed with courage and skill. And now, with a mouth-watering final to look forward to. Earlier, many hours before kick-off, the streets began to fill with expectation. The looks and sounds may have been familiar, but the significance of the game they'd come to see was out of the ordinary. Wembley was about to stage more than just a football match, a national event which would likely test the nerves of tens of millions watching to their limits. A night for heroes, but certainly not for the faint-hearted.
I've watched England all my life. I'm 54. I've never seen a team like it.
3-0 England.
I'm excited, 11 out of 10, and I think it's going to end up 3-0.
I'm absolutely buzzing. It's England, it's the semi-finals, it's Wembley, it's going to be absolutely amazing.
As they headed for the security of the dressing room, a final few moments for each and every player to contemplate just how much tonight meant to so many. Denmark settled and then silenced Wembley.
Oh, it's a wonderful goal.
Their backline breached for the first time. Now their resilience would be tested. The response was almost immediate. Kane and Sterling combining again. Schmeichel a rock in the Danish goal.
It's an unbelievable save by Kasper Schmeichel.
Forced Kier to level the match.
Listen to the roar.
Harry Maguire notched one in the last match and so nearly increased his tournament tally once the teams had turned around. Schmeichel proving why he is one of the best. Tight games are often decided by one big moment. Was this it? Kane felled in the area. The ref said no, and so did VAR. It was stalemate, it was torture, it was extra time.
The final story is usually one of high hopes turning to disappointment and dejection. Not this time.
England, semi-finals, never easy, only once ever through. But from Lincoln to Manchester, in Gareth they put their trust. And in Trafalgar Square with Ian, they sang. Ian Brodie and the Lightning Seeds giving a surprise performance of that song. As the game began, so did the roller coaster. Stand up, sit down, breathe in Birmingham for a bit. But not for long. England behind, disbelief everywhere. Whether in Croydon or Bristol, the pain the same. Good job they couldn't see the joy of Copenhagen. The equaliser, well, they thought they had it. Minutes later, in Preston's evening sunshine, those prayers were answered. Beer's gone. Chairs gone. Balance gone. Oh, and that enthusiasm in Denmark, gone. Come the second half, came even more nerves. Sunderland, edgy. Support still amid the West Midlands drizzle. Extra time then, and with Nelson looking down, Trafalgar Square scents victory. It wouldn't be England without a missed penalty. This one had a very different ending. So good, let's rewatch the drama in the northeast. And go on, once more, at a Cambridgeshire sports club. So just two teams remain, and from the fans, one big emotional push is still needed. But the fog of competition's past is lifting. Richard Pallow, News at 10.
Well, Steve is here at a different location in Wembley, watching everything, of course. Steve, it might have mangled our nerves, but it was magic, wasn't it?
Absolutely magic, and it was always going to mangle our nerves, isn't it, if we were being honest. I think it was an incredibly impressive performance from England tonight. Their most impressive by far of the tournament so far, and I guess why that is because the first time the defence was breached. They hadn't conceded a goal going into tonight, and we always wondered over this week, their progress to the semi-final had been near faultless, but what would happen if they had to face a little bit of adversity, if they did go behind? How would they cope? Well, they coped brilliantly, didn't they? Because what they did is they just carried on playing as they had been playing, and then the breakthrough came. They levelled the game, and to be honest, after that, they were pretty much in control. I think a lot of this has to go down to Gareth Southgate, of course, something we'll be talking about over the days ahead. But if you think back to the beginning of the tournament, there were those who were saying, Raheem Sterling hasn't had a great time with his club towards the end of the season. Should he really be starting with all this young, exciting talent around? Gareth Southgate was having none of it. Harry Kane the same, looked a bit leggy in the first two games. Should he really be playing? Why doesn't he have a rest? Gareth Southgate said he's the first name on the list. And those two players really have been England's standout performers in the tournament. Remember, Gareth Southgate is the first England manager now to take England through a tournament semi-final. And he's done it, as he always does, with such grace. And now we've got this wonderful occasion on Sunday to look forward to the final against Italy. And we have to go through all this again, Julie.
We will indeed. Steve, for the moment, thank you very much indeed for that. And of course, we'll have much more on the football later on in the programme. To other news, though, now, and anyone who's had both vaccinations and is hoping for a foreign holiday this summer could be in luck. An announcement is due in the morning. ITV News understands that from July the 19th, they will be allowed to travel home from amber list countries without quarantining, provided they take and pass 2 COVID tests, one before their return flight and one after.
The government currently says you should not travel to amber list countries like Greece, but an announcement changing that is expected tomorrow, and the Prime Minister hinted it would be good news for the fully vaccinated.
I think that double vaccination is a potential and it's a great liberator. In principle, in practice, I think it's going to be great.
ITV News understands travel to Amber List countries will be allowed from July the 19th, and adults with 2 jabs and children will be allowed to return without having to quarantine so long as they are tested. Michael and Catherine have already booked a trip to Greece at the end of the month.
Obviously, if we had to isolate, it wouldn't be an option because of the 10 days we'd have to stay at home. So being double vaccinated and not having to isolate makes a massive difference to us to be able to go on holiday in a couple of weeks' time.
Removing quarantine for Amber List travellers would make more than 100 countries easier to return from, including major European holiday destinations, France, Spain, Portugal, Italy and Greece. But each of those countries' own national restrictions would still apply, and not everyone here thinks it's a good idea.
I think it is a risky policy. I think at the present moment, in the midst of such spiking infections, it is risky. Inevitably, it will increase infections, and I think we've got to take infections seriously.
Even amongst people travelling today, there were mixed opinions on quarantine.
If you've got 2 vaccines and you're protected, they either work or they don't. If the government thinks that they work, why should you have to go into quarantine?
I think it is probably a good idea to still have some kind of quarantine. Yeah, maybe like a shorter one or something, but people are still getting it with the vaccine.
The Transport Secretary will reveal the full details of the new policy in the morning.
And Carl's in Westminster now. And Carl, so we're expecting this travel announcement tomorrow, but with more than 30,000 new COVID cases just today, you get a sense of what a difficult balance this is to strike.
Yeah, and what a big risk the Prime Minister is taking with the degree of opening up that is planned for the 19th of July. Now, theoretically, it is possible that come Monday he could delay all of that, but I think it is so widely expected now that politically it's just impossible. There are a couple of things that will still limit the spread of infection. One of those is the continuing self-isolation regime for those who've been close contacts, which will go on until the middle of August. The other one is the fact that we'll be running into the school holidays, so that will remove one of the major drivers of viral spread. That said, there will still be a very large number of infections coming down the track. Ministers don't disagree with that. And then whether or not, or to what extent rather, the vaccines have disrupted the link between infection, hospitalisation and death, that will become incredibly important. Now, for most people, we know, and for even more people than before, if they catch this infection, it will probably not have serious consequences at all. But for some people, particularly those who have their immune systems compromised in one way or another, and their families, this is going to be a very frightening time indeed.
Carl, thank you very much indeed for that. Our Amazon investigation into how the online retailer scraps perfectly saleable items was mentioned for a second day running in a parliamentary committee, and this time it was the Prime Minister who condemned what they are doing. Our undercover filming inside one of their warehouses in Dunfermline showed a whole range of consumer electronics, all sorted into boxes marked "Destroy."
You, I believe, were as shocked as I was to see reports of Amazon destroying unsold consumer electronics from a warehouse less than an hour away from Glasgow, where you'll be holding COP26. Is there anything that you can do as a UK government to hold global corporates to account for their environmental footprint?
Amazon say they do not send a single item to landfill in the UK. Millions of products go to charities. Their goal, they say, is to achieve what they call zero product disposal. Now, we haven't heard much from Donald Trump recently, partly, of course, because he's been silenced by his usual social media outlets. Well, today he announced he was taking them on over just that. In fact, he's taking them to court. All this as one of his closest confidants launches a new social media platform to counter so-called cancel culture. So could this be how Donald Trump finds his voice once more?
He's the former president taking on the tech giants who gave him voice to gain power, but silenced him when they deemed he took that power too far. Now banned from most social media platforms, Donald Trump is taking his revenge.
I think it's going to be a very, very important game changer for our country. It will be a pivotal battle in the defense of the First Amendment, and in the end, I am confident that we will achieve a historic victory for American freedom and at the same time, freedom of speech.
He was stripped of his social media presence in the days after the storming of the Capitol in January. Those he's suing, Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, deemed he'd broken their rules and could use their platforms to incite further violence. 6 months on, he says he's protecting free speech.
If they can do it to me, they can do it to anyone. But what they're doing is incredible and incredibly dangerous.
Those he now pursues through the courts, like Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, will likely argue different constitutional rights to defend their decision, though none have used their platforms to offer comment.
Whether here at Trump Tower or in the White House, social media was the president's pulpit, a place he could promote himself, praise or punish others. If he's to get back into power, he needs those forums again.
Perhaps that's why this man, Jason Miller, Trump's confidant and former campaign advisor, has just launched his own social media site, an apparent antidote to cancel culture.
It's a real slippery slope when we go and start limiting folks' freedom of speech, their freedom of political speech, when they can't express themselves. That's how you start tiptoeing towards a fascist, essentially, regime.
Do you think this could be a way for the former president to get back into power?
President Trump has to find a way to circumnavigate, so to speak, the media powers that don't want him to come back. I think if President Trump wants to come back and run again and have a shot, that he needs to have a platform.
The right to free speech is enshrined in the American Constitution. It will be for the courts to decide when that right becomes a wrong. Emma Murphy, News at 10, New York.
Shock at the assassination of a serving head of state has prompted waves of condemnation from around the world, centred on the Caribbean country of Haiti. Its president, Jovenel Moïse, was shot dead overnight. A group of armed men burst into his home. Quite who they were or why they did it still isn't clear. The president's wife was also shot and badly wounded. Only the day before, Mr. Moïse had chosen a new prime minister. A state of siege has been declared in the country. And there's been another high-profile shooting in the Netherlands. A crime reporter who had made it his business to investigate the Dutch underworld was shot in the head last night and is now fighting for his life. Peter R. de Vries had just been on television talking about his work. The Dutch king called it an attack on journalism, the cornerstone of the state.
In a pale grey suit, one of the Netherlands' most courageous journalists walks away from a television studio. But as Peter R. de Vries disappeared from sight, he was shot in the street in Amsterdam.
Goedenavond. In Nederland en daarbuiten is met...
This is how the country was told about the attack. De Vries was shot in the head and seriously wounded. He is a public figure seen by many as a national hero. Even the King and Queen offered their support. We would like to express our dismay for the terrible attack yesterday on Peter R. de Vries. We wish all who are dear to him a lot of strength. Today, as police spoke to witnesses, blood-stained blankets lay where Mr. de Vries was gunned down. An investigator famous for exposing gangsters and drug lords. His work has helped police solve many high-profile cases. The European Commission today, too, showed solidarity.
Journalists investigating potential abuses of power are not a threat, but an asset to our democracies and our societies. And our thoughts and solidarity go with the journalist Peter de Vries in these moments.
Just hours after the shooting, this dashcam captured the moment 2 men were arrested over the attack. A third has also been questioned. The crime scene has become a focal point for those who admire de Vries. He helped a lot of people, a lot of families. People are not aware of how much he means to the Netherlands. It's just not right that you can't express your opinion, else risk being shot in the street. Tributes willing De Vries to survive and to fight have been laid as the man who spent his career fighting for justice fights for his life in hospital. Lucy Watson, News at 10.
One of the all-time greats of Bollywood, Dilip Kumar, has died at the grand old age of 98.
कि सुबह होते ही हर शमा हमेशा के लिए खामोश कर दी जाती है। साहिब आलम, तुमने भी एक राज जानने की कोशिश की है।
He became known as the tragedy king for the kind of lead roles he regularly played. He was popular both in India and in Pakistan, where his family came from. He'd been complaining of breathlessness over the past month. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi said the actor was blessed with unparalleled brilliance. To Wimbledon now, an 8-time winner Roger Federer may have played his last singles match there. He lost in straight sets today, the first time that's happened to him at Wimbledon, to Poland's Hubert Hurkacz in the quarter-final. Federer said afterwards he didn't know whether he'd be back. That's quite a sight, isn't it? And back to the football now. How could we leave it alone? And England's success dominates tomorrow's front pages. The Times says succinctly, England make history. It shows Harry Kane celebrating his goal. The Daily Mirror adds after 50...
Let's go on to The Eye, and that describes the results as fairy tale football there. The Telegraph calls the team the History Boys, while the Sun's version reminds us of the slogan for a well-known Danish lager with probably the best feeling in the world, while the Express simply says, and finally a phrase we've been known to use here once or twice. In disappointed Denmark, England's joy has been their despair. It was particularly cruel when Harry Kane's penalty was initially saved. The cheers went up as goalkeeper Kasper Schmeichel kept it out. But then, keep watching, there was silence as Kane's follow-up went in.
Disappointed, right? England, they did good, but the referee about the pen, I'm not sure that it was there.
It's been a crazy ride, huh?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster. It's just, we went from total sadness to total excitement, and then now it's down.
It has been so much love in Denmark, and it has brings all of us together. And
we're really proud of the team.
And thanks to Duncan, who's saved us with a safe pair of hands there. We're back here at Wembley, and alongside me now is Steve. And we ought to pick up, Steve, really with some of the reaction we've seen in Denmark tonight, because they have had the most extraordinary journey here, not least all the emotional stuff they've been through too.
And maybe that's what did it for them in the end. You know, I think the Christian Eriksen episode galvanised them to start with, obviously, and I think it pulled them through. They got better and better and better throughout the tournament. Each game they were wanting to win for him, but I think you saw tonight, probably after about 75, 80 minutes and certainly into extra time, they just ran out of legs, and maybe the emotional strain that they've been through throughout this tournament has caught up with them in the end.
And Southgate always seems to have just that extra pair of legs in his reserve, doesn't it? It was extraordinary. We saw that in action tonight.
Well, he held his nerve tonight. He didn't make his substitutes till much after the Danes did, but it worked. Like everything he seems to do in this tournament at the moment is working.
Steve, what a prospect we've got to look forward to on Sunday.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing.
Those of us a certain age can't hardly believe it.
I know. How did this really happen? Italy in the final. No, it's going to be an amazing. I mean, tonight was a great occasion. That is going to be even better. And I think this young team, well, the way they're playing at the moment, Italy, who haven't been beaten in 30-plus games, will hold no fear for them.
OK, Steve, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed for that. And that is just about it on the nights that the Three Lions scored 2 goals to put them 1 match away from victory in the Euros. The journey that began 3 weeks ago is nearing its destination. Destiny awaits.
There is a real sense of occasion.
For England fans, there is always hope.
Finally, England fans have something to get them out.
This time there was more. There was expectation. Not since '66 had they reached a big final. Was this their summer to light up a nation? If anyone could lead them there, surely Southgate was the man. A study in calm and in quiet determination. He had something to prove and memories to erase. A new kind of manager, aiming for national celebration. In his way tonight stood the Danes on a mission to do it for Christian Eriksen, who collapsed in their first match. They've won it before, nearly 30 years ago. For the countrymen of Hans Christian Andersen, there's no happy waits. The semi-final hoodoo is broken. Now, bring on the Italians. History beckons here on Sunday. There are new legends to create. From a still noisy but expectant Wembley, good night. And roll on Sunday. Thanks for staying up.
Alistair's arrived and he's got a lot